the aircraft pilot suddenly collapsed, his body going completely limp over the controls. 180 passengers immediately erupted into panic. The cabin attendant desperately scanned the rows of terrified faces, searching for anyone who could help. Then a woman in seat 23F stood up slowly. "I can handle this," she said calmly. Market cashier Elena Martinez was about to embark on the flight of her lifetime. Welcome to Inspiring Stories. Before we dive into this incredible story of hidden courage and unexpected heroism, tell us in the comments where you're watching from today. If you believe that extraordinary people walk among us in ordinary jobs, hit that subscribe button and help us share these powerful tales. But let's rewind to understand how a grocery store cashier ended up saving 180 lives at 35,000 feet. Because the truth about Elena Martinez was far more complex than anyone could have imagined. And some secrets only reveal themselves when death comes knocking. 3 hours earlier, Elena had been standing behind Register 7 at Save Mart, scanning groceries and enduring the usual condescending comments. "Still working here?" asked Mrs. Henderson, a regular customer. "When are you going to get a real job, honey?" Elena had smiled politely, the way she always did, but inside her jacket pocket, folded carefully next to her employee ID, was something Mrs. Henderson would never expect. A commercial pilot's license. And not just any license. There was something else hidden in Elena's past, something that made her more than just another dreamer working retail. But we'll come back to that mystery, because right now, 30,000 feet in the air, Elena was hearing sounds that made her blood run cold. The senior flight attendant, Sarah Mitchell, grabbed the intercom with trembling hands. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing a medical emergency. Please remain calm and return to your seats." Calm? Elena thought grimly as she felt the aircraft's subtle but unmistakable signs of distress. The particular vibration in the fuselage. The change in engine pitch that most passengers wouldn't notice. But Elena noticed everything about aircraft behavior, and what she was sensing now meant they had minutes, not hours. You see, Elena Martinez had been keeping a secret for 18 months. Every Tuesday and Thursday, she flew this exact route as a passenger. Not for leisure, not for business. She was studying, memorizing, learning every detail of how different crews handled this specific aircraft on this specific route. But why? Why would a grocery store cashier spend her life savings on plane tickets just to observe? The answer to that question was locked away in Elena's apartment, hidden in a box she hadn't opened in 2 years. Inside that box were photographs, certificates, and documents that told a different story about who Elena Martinez really was. Documents that would explain how she could afford flight training on a cashier's salary. Papers that revealed why she knew Boeing 737 systems better than pilots with decades of experience. But those revelations would have to wait. Because right now, the aircraft was in trouble, and Elena was the only person on board who truly understood how much trouble they were in. Sarah Mitchell's voice crackled through the cabin again, this time with barely concealed desperation. "Is there a pilot on board? Anyone with flight experience, please identify yourself immediately." Elena closed her eyes. In her mind, she could hear her father's voice from 5 years ago, words that still haunted her. "Sometimes, Mija, hiding who you are becomes more dangerous than revealing it." She had been hiding for so long, but now 180 lives hung in the balance, and Elena Martinez faced the moment she'd been both dreading and preparing for since the day she'd walked away from everything. Sarah Mitchell's voice crackled over the intercom again, this time with desperation barely concealed. "Is there a pilot on board? Anyone with flight experience, Please identify yourself immediately." The passengers looked around with wild eyes, scanning faces, hoping someone would stand up, hoping someone would save them. The silence stretched for 30 seconds that felt like hours. Elena closed her eyes. In her mind, she could hear her mother's voice from 6 months ago. "Mija, when are you going to stop pretending? When are you going to stop hiding who you really are?" She had been hiding. For 2 years, she'd been working at Save Mart, while secretly pursuing her pilot's license, afraid to tell anyone about her dreams because they seemed too big for someone like her. Elena was the daughter of immigrants, raised in a housing project, educated at community college. People like her weren't supposed to fly planes. They were supposed to be grateful for steady work and modest dreams. But dreams have a way of demanding their due, especially when lives hang in the balance. Elena unbuckled her seatbelt and stood up. As she moved toward the front of the plane, her mind flashed to something she'd never told anyone. The real reason she knew these aircraft so intimately. The secret that explained everything. But that revelation would have to wait. Right now, 180 people needed her to be exactly who she'd been trained to be. "I can help," she said, her voice carrying an authority that seemed to come from nowhere. Sarah Mitchell hurried down the aisle, hope and skepticism battling in her expression. "Are you a pilot?" "Yes," Elena replied. But even as she said it, she knew she was revealing only part of the truth. The complete truth was something she hadn't spoken aloud in 2 years. What Sarah didn't know, what no one knew, was that Elena Martinez wasn't just a commercial pilot. There was something else, something that explained her uncanny ability to handle crisis situations, her deep understanding of aircraft systems, and the mysterious confidence that now radiated from her small frame. "Follow me," Sarah said, leading Elena toward the cockpit. As they pushed through the cockpit door, Elena felt time slow down. The instrument panel spread before her, and for the first time in 2 years, she allowed herself to remember who she really was. The memories came flooding back. Different aircraft. Different emergencies. Different lives saved. Elena had done this before, not as a commercial pilot, but in circumstances far more dangerous than anyone on this plane could imagine. Captain Rodriguez was unconscious, but breathing. Elena gently moved him away from the controls and slipped into the pilot's seat. Her hands found the instruments with a precision that came from muscle memory that had been earned in places where mistakes meant death. As she began to take control of the aircraft, Elena thought about the box in her apartment, the one containing her real story, the medals, the commendations, the photographs of aircraft that officially didn't exist. The documents that proved Elena Martinez was more than just a commercial pilot with a dream. She was something else entirely, something that would explain everything once this crisis was over. But right now, 180 lives depended on her keeping that secret just a little bit longer. "Talk to me," she said to Sarah, her voice now carrying the calm authority of someone born to command. "What happened before he collapsed?" "He said something about chest pain. Then he just fell forward." Elena's eyes swept the instrument panel, reading the story of the crisis in blinking lights and digital displays, hydraulic pressure dropping, electrical system fluctuating. The autopilot had disengaged when the captain collapsed, leaving the aircraft in an uncontrolled descent. She keyed the radio. "Mayday, mayday, mayday. This is Atlas Airlines Flight 447. We have an incapacitated captain and are declaring a medical emergency." The response came immediately from air traffic control. "Atlas 447, This is New York Center. State your situation and pilot qualifications. New York Center. Atlas 447. Captain is unconscious. Unknown medical condition. I am Elena Martinez, commercial pilot, Boeing 737 rated, taking command of the aircraft. There was a pause that lasted perhaps 3 seconds, but felt like an eternity. When the controller's voice returned, it carried a new tone of respect and relief. Atlas 447, Roger. We're clearing you direct to Newark. Runway 4L is being prepared for emergency landing. Medical teams are standing by. Elena's hands moved across the controls with practiced efficiency that went far beyond civilian training. First, level the aircraft and stop the descent. Then, diagnose the system's failures and work around them. But as she worked, something unexpected happened. Her movements were too precise, too automatic, too military. Sarah watched in growing amazement as Elena's hands flew across switches and controls with the kind of muscle memory that couldn't be faked. This wasn't just commercial pilot training. This was something else entirely. "Who are you?" Sarah whispered. Elena's jaw tightened, the question she'd been avoiding for 2 years. The truth she'd buried beneath grocery store shifts and civilian pilot licenses. "Right now," Elena said carefully, "I'm the person who's going to get everyone home safely. But the complete answer to your question—" She paused, her hands never stopping their work on the controls. "That's a longer story." In the cabin, passengers felt the aircraft stabilize, but they had no idea they were witnessing something extraordinary. Elena wasn't just flying the plane. She was flying it with a precision that spoke of training most civilian pilots never received. The kind of training that happened in classified programs, the kind that prepared pilots for missions that officially never existed. Elena keyed the radio with the calm authority of someone who had done this in far more dangerous circumstances. "Mayday! Mayday! Mayday! This is Atlas Airlines Flight 447. We have an incapacitated captain and are declaring a medical emergency." As she spoke, Sarah noticed something that made her breath catch. Elena's radio procedure wasn't just professional. It was perfect. Military perfect. The approach to Newark required every skill Elena had ever learned, in both civilian and military aircraft. With reduced hydraulic pressure, the controls felt heavy and unresponsive. But Elena had flown damaged aircraft before, in places where emergency landing strips were just dirt roads under enemy fire. This Boeing 737 was a luxury compared to some of the aircraft she'd brought home safely. Aircraft that couldn't be mentioned in any official record. Missions that had never happened, according to the government files. The touchdown was perfect. Elena felt the wheels kiss the runway with exactly the right force, and as the aircraft came to a stop, she finally allowed herself to breathe. In the cabin, 180 passengers erupted in applause. But Elena sat quietly in the pilot's seat, knowing that her carefully constructed civilian life was about to unravel completely. Because someone would ask questions, someone would investigate. And when they did, they would discover that Elena Martinez, grocery store cashier and commercial pilot, had once been someone else entirely. Someone whose existence was still classified at the highest levels of government. Elena sat in the pilot's seat for a moment, her hands still gripping the controls, hardly believing what had just happened. Sarah Mitchell appeared beside her, tears streaming down her face. "How?" Sarah asked. "How does a cashier know how to fly?" Elena finished the question with a smile. "Because dreams don't care what your day job is. They only care whether you're brave enough to chase them." The next few hours passed in a blur of debriefings, medical checks, and interviews. Captain Rodriguez was stable. a heart attack. But he would recover. The passengers were safely transferred to other flights. The aircraft would be repaired and returned to service. But for Elena Martinez, everything had changed forever. The story broke on social media within hours, but it wasn't just about a heroic cashier anymore. Videos showed Elena's impossibly precise flying, her military-perfect radio procedures, her calm under pressure that spoke of training far beyond civilian programs. Aviation experts who watched the footage began asking uncomfortable questions. Retired military pilots recognized something in Elena's technique that civilian schools simply didn't teach. Elena found herself standing outside the airport terminal at dawn, knowing that her secret was about to be exposed whether she wanted it or not. Her phone buzzed with a text from a number she hadn't seen in 2 years, a number she'd hoped never to see again. "We know where you are. We've been watching. Time to come home. Colonel Mitchell." Elena stared at the message, her hands trembling slightly. She had walked away from that life 2 years ago, changed her name, created a new identity. But, apparently, you never really leave certain programs. They just wait for you to prove you're still valuable. Elena Martinez? She turned to find not one person, but 3. A woman in a Delta Airlines uniform, but Elena's trained eyes caught details others would miss. The subtle earpiece, the way she stood that suggested combat training, the slight bulge under her jacket that meant she was armed. "Captain Jennifer Walsh, Delta Airlines," the woman said, but her eyes said something different. "We need to talk." Elena nodded slowly. The charade was over. The grocery store cashier was about to disappear forever, and the person she'd tried so hard to leave behind was about to resurface. But first, there were questions to answer. Starting with the big one. Who was Elena Martinez before she became Elena Martinez? The answer to that question was classified at levels most people didn't know existed. But as Elena followed the 3 strangers toward a black SUV, she knew that some secrets were too big to stay buried forever, especially when those secrets involved aircraft that officially didn't exist, missions that never happened, and a program so classified that even admitting it existed was treason. Elena Martinez, Save Mart cashier, was about to remember that she had once been someone else entirely. Someone whose skills had been honed in the most dangerous corners of the world. Someone who had saved lives in ways that could never be officially acknowledged. And now, those skills had saved 180 civilians on a commercial flight, which meant her cover was blown and her past was about to catch up with her in ways she'd never imagined. The woman who had spent 2 years hiding behind a retail uniform was about to discover that some identities are too powerful to stay hidden forever. The message she wants everyone to understand is simple but powerful. Your current circumstances don't define your future possibilities. The person bagging your groceries might be an artist. The janitor might be a poet. The cashier might be a pilot. Everyone has hidden depths, secret dreams, and untapped potential. The only question is whether we're brave enough to let them see the light. Now I ask you, what dream are you hiding? What talent are you keeping secret because it doesn't match what others expect from you? Share your story in the comments, because at Inspiring Stories, we believe that the most powerful dreams are the ones that seem impossible until someone proves they're not. If this story inspired you to believe in hidden potential, hit that like button to help us reach others who need to hear this message. Subscribe to our channel and ring that notification bell for more stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Your support helps us continue sharing these powerful stories of courage, determination, and the magic that happens when someone refuses to accept other people's limitations. Thank you for watching, and remember, the sky isn't the limit when you're meant to fly.